Imagine this for a second. Someone can want love with their whole heart and still freeze the moment it starts to feel real. They think about closeness. They dream about peace with one person. They want warmth, loyalty, and that deep feeling of being chosen. But when love finally moves from fantasy into reality, something inside them panics. Their body gets loud before their words do. Their chest tightens. Their thoughts speed up. Their need for distance suddenly feels stronger than their wish to stay near. So if you have ever sat there confused, wondering why someone pulls back right when things are getting good, stay with me, because this is where most people get it wrong. What if the distance is not hatred? What if the silence is not a lack of care? What if that step back is not rejection, but a nervous system screaming for relief? And here is the twist that changes the whole story. They may not be running from love itself. They may be running from the fear that love will cost them peace, freedom, control, or even their sense of self. Once you see that clearly, you stop chasing the wrong answer. And when you stop chasing the wrong answer, the whole connection can begin to move in a different direction. Watch closely, because the part that usually looks like disinterest may actually be fear, wearing a calm face. Most people only judge what they can see. They notice what is missing. No first text, no fast opening up, no dramatic emotional display, no quick move toward deeper closeness, even when something real is clearly growing. From the outside, it looks cold. It looks selfish. It looks confusing. Some people assume the guarded person is detached, unavailable, or just not interested enough. But that reading is often too shallow. What looks like rejection is often protection. What looks like distance is often a person trying not to drown in feelings they do not know how to hold. They are usually not avoiding you as a person. They are avoiding the inner experience of being emotionally exposed without enough safety inside themselves. That is a very different thing. Every human being is built for connection, even guarded people, even quiet people, even the ones who look strong and unreadable. But the need to protect yourself is real too. And when the need for closeness crashes into the need for self-protection, protection usually wins first. That is why intimacy can feel complicated. It does not always feel soft in the beginning. Sometimes it feels risky. Sometimes it feels like pressure. Sometimes it feels like losing control. So before asking why they are not moving closer, ask the deeper question. What does closeness feel like inside their body? Because if intimacy feels like danger, then distance will feel like relief. And people always move toward relief. This is the part many people skip. They want honesty, effort, warmth, commitment, messages, clarity, and visible action. But before any of that can grow, one question usually lives underneath everything else. Am I safe here? Not safe because someone says, trust me. Not safe because the logic makes sense. Safe in a felt way. Safe in tone, safe in pacing, safe in energy, safe in the emotional air between two people. Without that felt safety, nothing truly opens for long. A person can miss you and still avoid replying. They can care deeply and still disappear for a while. They can want connection and still shut down when it gets too close. Painful, yes. Contradictory, yes, but very real. Think of it like planting a living seed into hard concrete. The seed may be healthy, but it cannot grow there. The ground has to soften first. For someone with avoidant habits, emotional softness means no hidden pressure, no emotional ambush, no sudden demand to perform closeness on command. It means they can breathe inside the bond. It means your presence does not feel like a trap waiting to close. And this kind of safety is rarely built through speeches. It is built through smaller things, through calm, through consistency, through not turning every quiet moment into a crisis, through not trying to control the outcome of every interaction, through being emotionally steady enough that they do not feel cornered. Stay with this, because this is where change actually starts. That is why pressure almost always backfires. A lot of people think the answer is to chase harder, explain more, ask more questions, demand clarity again and again, or force a breakthrough. But with a guarded person, that often triggers the exact fear that keeps them distant in the first place. The more trapped they feel, the more they pull away. The more emotionally crowded they feel, the more their defenses take over. They may go quiet. They may become vague. They may ask for more space than before. And then the other person panics, pushes even harder, and the cycle grows stronger. Watch this carefully. They usually do not come closer because they were pressured. They come closer when closeness begins to feel like a choice instead of an obligation. That changes everything. Connection has to feel chosen, not forced. When you stop trying to drag them toward you, they sometimes begin to feel safe enough to turn around on their own. That is the paradox. Their independence is not always arrogance. Often it is a survival structure built over years, maybe from childhood, maybe from relationships where closeness came with criticism, guilt, shame, emotional chaos, or too much demand. So now freedom feels linked to safety. Space feels linked to control. If the connection allows them to move at a human pace, if they do not feel hunted emotionally, something new begins to happen. They start to see that closeness and freedom might be able to live in the same room. And once that idea becomes real in the body, even small acts of effort begin to mean something big. What many people miss is that the shift is not just emotional, it is physical, it is nervous system work. Many people with avoidant patterns learned early that closeness was not always safe. Maybe love felt conditional, maybe openness led to embarrassment, maybe needing someone led to disappointment, maybe home felt unpredictable, and the only way to stay balanced was to become self-contained. So they learned to handle emotion by pulling inward. Distance became regulation. Space became oxygen. That pattern does not disappear just because they meet someone caring. It takes repetition. It takes calm moments stacked on top of calm moments. It takes enough steady experiences for the brain to update its old map of intimacy. This is why dramatic intensity rarely heals this dynamic. Calm does, predictability does, emotional steadiness does. When the brain begins linking closeness with peace instead of chaos, something natural happens. They stop reaching out only when they feel lonely or guilty. They begin to reach out because the connection itself feels lighter, safer, easier to breathe in. Their body stops treating intimacy like an emergency. They test new behavior in small pieces. They share a little more. They stay a little longer. They come back a little faster. They think about you without feeling swallowed by the thought. And yes, this process can be slow, but slow does not mean fake. Slow does not mean they do not care. Slow often means deep fear is being rewritten in real time. If you rush that process, you usually reopen the wound. If you respect the pace, you help create the environment where real initiative can grow. So if you are trying to connect with someone like this, pause before asking why they are not moving toward you fast enough. Ask instead, does their system truly feel safe with me? Do they feel free around me or monitored? Do they feel accepted or managed? Does my presence feel calm or does it carry hidden pressure? Because until safety exists at a deeper level, no trick will work for long. People with avoidant habits do not usually respond well to force. They respond to peace. They respond to emotional room that does not punish them for needing room. Once peace becomes the emotional tone between you, movement can begin more naturally. Their distance starts to make more sense too. You stop calling every pause rejection. You stop treating every silent moment like proof you do not matter. You begin to see their withdrawal as information. Something came in too strong, something hit too fast, something inside them got overloaded. Their space is not always punishment. Sometimes it is recovery. Sometimes it is the body saying, I need a minute to breathe so I do not shut down completely. That understanding changes the way you respond. Instead of chasing the distance with fear, you meet it with steadiness. And no, that does not mean abandoning yourself. It does not mean accepting crumbs forever. It does not mean ignoring mixed signals or harmful behavior. It means you stop reacting from panic. You stop making every moment of space into a courtroom. You choose groundedness over emotional pursuit. And strangely, that groundedness is often what helps them return with more openness than before. This is the point where the pattern can either heal or break. When a guarded person steps back, the deeper truth is often simpler than people think. They are not always saying, I do not care. Many times they are saying, this feels like too much for me right now. Their independence works like emotional oxygen. If they feel crowded, pushed, or overwhelmed, they experience that as inner suffocation. So they back away to regain balance. The tragedy is that the other person often reads that step back as abandonment and answers it with urgency. Then the pressure rises and the cycle tightens again. This is why space, even when it hurts, can become the very thing that allows movement. But hear this clearly. Giving space is not the same as emotionally disappearing. It is not coldness. It is not playing games. It is not pretending not to care. It is staying present without invading. It is being available without becoming intrusive. It is letting the emotional temperature cool so something real can breathe again. In that kind of atmosphere, they begin to feel that closeness may not demand the loss of self they fear most. They start learning that love does not always mean pressure, control, or emotional chaos. It can include freedom. It can include quiet. It can include room to think. And that changes everything because people move toward what feels safe and chosen. They move toward what welcomes them without grabbing them. Once they feel that being close to you will not cost them their peace, desire wakes up differently. Then initiative is no longer something you beg for. It becomes something they begin to offer on their own. And those first signs are easy to miss if you are only looking for fireworks. That shift usually starts small. A text you did not ask for, a softer tone, a longer reply, a more personal check-in, a question about your day that feels real, a suggestion to meet that comes from them without pressure, a rare moment of honesty instead of distance. These moments may look tiny from the outside, but inside them they are huge. They mean the system is starting to trust the connection a little more. They mean safety is taking root, and once safety starts growing, space itself begins to change meaning. At first, distance may serve only one purpose: escape, regulate, recover, get away. But over time, if the connection stays emotionally steady, space stops being only escape. It becomes reflection. It becomes a place where they can think clearly and return with more self-awareness. This is a major turning point. They are no longer using distance only to run from the bond. They are beginning to use it to keep the bond from becoming too intense. That difference matters. It means they are not simply shutting you out. They are learning how to stay connected without collapsing under the weight of closeness. And relationships like this often move in waves, not straight lines. They come closer, then pull back, then return again, like the tide. If you panic every time the tide goes out, fear grows for both people. But if you understand the rhythm, you stop trying to freeze the ocean. And the more unforced they feel, the more honestly they tend to return. So the next time that familiar silence appears, do not rush to fill it with fear. Breathe first. Read the pattern clearly. Sometimes what feels like loss is actually regulation happening in real time. This is where emotional neutrality becomes powerful, and it is often misunderstood. Many people hear the word neutrality and think it means cold, dry, detached, or emotionally absent. But real neutrality is not that. It is emotional steadiness. It is knowing how to stay grounded when the energy gets intense. It is being warm without becoming chaotic. It is having feelings without letting those feelings control every word, every text, every reaction. For a guarded person, this kind of balance feels deeply calming. Their system notices pressure quickly, faster than many people realize. They pick up on tone changes, urgency, facial tension, repeated questions, emotional heaviness, the unspoken demand for immediate reassurance. Their body reads all of that fast. Why? Because somewhere in life, intensity may have been tied to criticism, shame, conflict, or overwhelm. So even small signals can trigger defense, raised voices, tight energy, repeated requests for answers, demands for fast clarity. All of that can make them feel unsafe. And the moment they feel unsafe, withdrawal starts feeling necessary again. That is why neutrality is not weak. It is intelligent. It tells their nervous system, without saying much at all, you do not need to defend yourself here. When you answer their withdrawal with calm instead of panic, you send a message stronger than many long talks. You say through your energy, I am not here to invade your peace. That lowers defense. That lowers the emotional volume. And when the volume drops, they can hear their own desire for connection more clearly. If this is making sense, stay with me, because this one shift alone can change the entire tone of the relationship. Over time, this changes the dynamic in a very real way. They stop expecting every serious moment to turn into emotional chaos. They stop assuming your need for closeness will erase their right to breathe. They begin taking small risks toward intimacy because the emotional field around them feels safer. This is often when they start initiating more, maybe not all at once, maybe not with a dramatic flood of affection, but naturally, organically. They begin reaching out because they want to. They check in because it feels good, not because they feel chased. They start trusting that coming closer does not mean signing away their freedom, and that trust can make them more emotionally available than pressure ever could. Here is the surprising part. Neutrality can actually make you more attractive, not less. You become someone steady, someone clear, someone whose presence feels like rest instead of tension. You stop being dragged by every emotional wave and begin responding with awareness. That kind of grounded warmth is rare, and rare things tend to stay in memory. People remember who made them feel safe. They remember who did not punish them for needing room. They remember who stayed calm enough to make closeness feel possible instead of heavy. True steadiness also grows from self-awareness. You notice what you feel, but you do not let every fear become a reaction. You understand your triggers, but you do not dump all of them onto the other person. You stay responsible for your emotional energy. That matters deeply here because one of the biggest fears in avoidant patterns is emotional loss of control. When they see someone remain soft and stable in tense moments, their picture of intimacy starts to change from the inside. You show this not through grand speeches, but through ordinary moments. You pause before reacting. You keep your tone calm when you feel triggered. You let silence exist for a moment without turning it into a threat. You choose words that lower pressure instead of raising it. Instead of saying, "Why are you doing this again?" you might say, "I can feel you pulling back. I respect your space. I'm here when you're ready." Language like that gives room without creating punishment. It tells them they are not about to be emotionally chased or judged, and respect is one of the strongest bridges back to connection for someone with avoidant habits. Over time, they begin to associate you with calm, understanding, and emotional safety instead of demand. Their body starts relaxing in your presence. They stop bracing so much. They stop preparing for conflict before it even begins. And from that softer place, their return becomes different, not driven by guilt, not driven by duty, but by willingness, clearer feeling, and a growing sense that this bond might actually be safe enough to stay in. At the same time, this does not mean you erase your own needs. That part matters just as much. Emotional safety is not built through self-abandonment. You are not meant to wait forever, overgive, stay confused, or accept behavior that damages your peace. A healthy bond still needs honesty, respect, and shared effort. The difference is in how those needs are expressed. If your needs come wrapped in panic, accusation, or force, they may hear threat before they hear truth. But if your needs come with clarity and steadiness, there is a far better chance they can actually receive them. This is why boundaries matter so much. Calm boundaries, clean boundaries, boundaries that do not scream, but do not disappear either. You can say, "I respect your need for space, but I also need communication that feels consistent enough for me to feel secure." You can say, "I care about you, but I cannot build something healthy alone." You can say, "I want closeness that makes room for both of us." These are strong statements. They are not cold. They are grounded. And grounded energy is often far more effective than emotional pressure. A guarded person may trust you more when they see that you are not trying to control them, but you are also not losing yourself to keep them. That balance is powerful. It shows them that connection does not have to mean fusion. It does not have to mean chaos. Two people can remain separate and still be deeply bonded. Two people can have space and still be committed. Two people can move slowly and still move honestly. When they see that, fear loosens even more, because one of the deepest fears in avoidant patterns is being swallowed by intimacy. So the more a relationship proves that individuality can survive closeness, the safer love starts to feel. And once that fear softens, a new desire can rise inside them. Not the desire to run, not the desire to control distance all the time, but the desire to move toward, to participate, to take the lead. That is the part many people long to see. The first text, the clear effort, the invitation, the honesty that comes without being pulled out of them. And yes, that can happen, but usually only after enough evidence has built up in the body that this connection is not a trap. Then the change becomes visible. They may not turn into a completely different person overnight. Their style may still be quieter, their pace may still be careful, but their effort becomes easier to see. Their actions gain warmth. Their presence becomes less guarded. Watch the quality of the movement, not just the speed. A sincere reach out from someone who usually hides can mean more than a dramatic gesture from someone else. It means fear lost a little ground. It means connection gained a little room. And the more safe, respectful, calm experiences they have with you, the more those new pathways strengthen. This is how lasting change happens, not through one perfect conversation, not through a clever tactic, but through repeated moments where the nervous system learns, I can be close and still be okay. That lesson changes behavior from the inside out. It turns silence into thoughtfulness. It turns space into reflection. It turns hesitation into gradual courage. It turns a guarded heart into one that no longer feels love and freedom must live on opposite sides of the same door. And if you are still here, here is the deeper truth. You do not bring someone closer by overpowering their defenses. You bring them closer by becoming a place where those defenses no longer have to work so hard. You become steady, clear, emotionally responsible. You stop mistaking pressure for passion and panic for love. You learn that calm is not a lack of feeling. Calm is mature feeling. Calm is what lets deep feeling stay in the room long enough to become trust. And once trust begins to grow, something beautiful starts happening quietly beneath the surface. They begin to feel less alone inside themselves. They no longer have to choose between connection and self-protection in such an extreme way. They begin to believe that someone can care for them without crowding them, know them without controlling them, and stay present without becoming overwhelming. That is when the script starts to change. That is when the body stops bracing so hard. That is when the old instinct to retreat begins losing some of its power. And that is when their own desire starts leading them back toward you, not because you chased them, because you made closeness feel safe enough to choose. So the next time you feel the urge to push, pause. The next time silence scares you, breathe. The next time distance appears, ask what kind of safety is missing before you assume the worst. Sometimes the very thing that looks like withdrawal is part of the path back. Sometimes the person who seems to be moving away is actually trying, in the only way they know, not to lose themselves while learning how to stay. And sometimes the biggest breakthrough does not look loud at all. It looks like less fear, a softer return, a more honest sentence, a hand reaching back without being forced. That is how guarded hearts begin to open, slowly, quietly, truly. When peace replaces pressure, when freedom sits beside care, and when safety becomes stronger than fear, even the most defended person can begin to step forward, initiate, and finally meet love with open hands instead of armor. And if that is the shift you have been waiting for, remember this well. The goal is not to win the chase. The goal is to create a bond where no one has to run.